Well, I finished all the carving around the edges, and I've sanded everything down to P600 grit sandpaper, and now I'm ready to start the finish. I've got the bottom of the top facing up right now, and I'm going to be putting on about 4 coats of very thin shellac, somewhere between ½ pound and 1 pound cut. And then when that's done, that's going to sort of seal the surface because it'll be followed up by I think it's like 8 coats of a wipe-on varnish I make by mixing a 50-50 mix of polyurethane varnish and mineral spirits, and put on very thin coats, and then wipe them off after 20 minutes or so. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with the shellac, and we'll start seeing the quilted figure come out. This soaks in very readily because it's almost all denatured alcohol, but it does leave a little bit of shellac back behind, and it's a gentle way of building up the surface finish without having a very thick build look. And now I'll be putting some shellac on the top of the top. Now you may wonder why I finish the bottom of the top. I always finish both sides of everything, actually, in all my furniture. But particularly this top that is going to be floating, I want to make sure that moisture absorption is even on the top and the bottom. So I'll have exactly the same finishing on both sides, so that both sides absorb moisture seasonally at the same rate, and therefore less chance of any warping. See how the quilting is popping out? It'll only get better as we get more finish on. I've put the 4 coats of ½ pound cut shellac on here, and sanding down to P600 grit between each coat. And I put 1 coat of the 50-50 gloss polyurethane varnish and mineral spirits mix on. I'm about to do the second, and I thought I'd just show you how easy this is to do. Here's the mixture: 50-50 gloss polyurethane varnish and mineral spirits, and I just put some on here, and I'm just going to rub it in nice and even. And after it's all rubbed in even, I'm going to let it soak for 20 minutes or so, coming back now and then. If I see a little dry spot, I'll slide some mixture over to the dry spot. And in that 20 minutes or so, what happens is you not only have some of the mixture soaking into the surface, but more importantly, you evaporate some of the thinner. The mixture gets more solid, and you create a slight buildup. And by the time I'm ready to rub this off, there will be really no glossy areas. You'll be able to tell that it's still slightly liquid. I don't want to let it get to the point where it's dried and starting to cure, because then I won't be able to wipe it down to a surface that is not sticky. The object is, at the end of the 20 minutes or half hour or so, is to have a surface that's not sticky, and it has a very, very thin layer of material, and that way dust won't stick to it, and it'll cure fairly quickly. I'll probably be able to do another coat before I quit for the day, and probably do about 8 coats of this until I get enough build where I like the look, and I think I've got good protection. Remember, this is a sideboard buffet, so it's going to need some protection on this top. That's why I'm using this varnish mixture, and it also helps bring out the quilting, as I think you might be able to see. Okay, the finish has been on here for 15 or 20 minutes. I can see it's starting to have a little build. Getting thicker. The areas are feeling much drier. So I'm just trying to spread some of this around more evenly. I have not been rubbing it the whole time, by the way. I only rub it just to get it evenly spread out, and then I just let it sit. I used to try rubbing it until it dried out. I found it didn't really make much difference. So I was a whole lot more tired at the end. And then I'll just take a clean rag. It's actually a paper towel. Just wipe off the excess because I don't want dust sticking to the surface. And the amount that I'm wiping off is very, very small compared to what I had applied. So I know most of the product has remained on the surface. Make sure you get the edges nice, especially underneath the lip, so that you don't have a drop that forms there and then dries and cures, because it'll stay looking just like a drop. You don't want that. Also, I know normally with varnish, because varnish is a finish that dries not by evaporation but by curing. As the molecular structure changes, the varnish cures. It does not adhere to the underlayers by dissolving them as shellac and lacquer do. When you put shellac or lacquer on, I'm talking about conventional lacquer, the solvents actually dissolve the layer that's already down enough for the new material to adhere and bond. But with varnish, it doesn't work that way. With varnish, it's a mechanical connection between layers, and so normally you would sand between layers of varnish so that there's a little tooth to make that mechanical connection. With this process, I really don't sand. I might buff a little bit with some of this white pad here, abrasive pad, and that's mostly just in case there's a dust nib. The layers I'm putting on are so slight, so thin, there's still enough grain left in the wood unfilled that I found I get good adhesion, and I don't have to go sanding, because of course I've already sanded to P600 and I don't want to rough that up very much. And that seems to work with this process. Alright, and we'll let that cure. Now I've got the top temporarily clamped onto the leg structure, and I'm going to go up through the holes that I had drilled way back when we were making the stretchers using a a center punch here, a marking punch. Just go ahead and mark where the holes should be for the screws that hold the top on. The last coat of finish was put on almost a week ago. It's been almost 2 weeks since I started finishing, so it's been a lot of time for the finish to cure, and now it's time for me to put a little bit of wax on the finish. I use a product called Brie Wax, B-R-I-W-A-X. I like it. It's a nice soft wax. It comes in various colors. This particular color is light brown to match the look of the wood. And I'm just going to put a couple of coats on there. What I do is I take a piece of cotton cloth, I put a little lump of Brie Wax inside, fold it up, and then squeeze it a little bit, and the wax liquefies and comes oozing out, and what enables me to put on a very thin coat. I just go ahead and I rub it in, and then I'll immediately buff it. If I wait too long to buff, I'll have a problem with hard little wax lines that look a lot like the surface of the applicator. So I always like to just buff it off right away. Thin coats, and it works very nicely. There we go. The top is attached. And here is the quilted big leaf maple top installed, book matched. I never did point out that this lovely piece of wood came from Northwest Timber out in Oregon, and they just have some very, very nice figured woods such as this. This was a really rare find, to find a piece of quilted big leaf maple book matched in this large of a size, and it happened to be almost exactly what we needed for this table. Sorry for the glare from my lights and so forth, but I think you can see the quilting and how nice this piece looked, and I think here now you can see how this carving underneath the top comes out. Very nice. I'm happy with the results.